I'm Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell, and after 7 years of practicing medicine and staying current with the latest research, I need to share something with you that could change how you think about blood pressure control. A 2023 study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine analyzed 270 randomized controlled trials involving nearly 16,000 participants. The researchers compared every major form of exercise for lowering blood pressure: running, cycling, weightlifting, high-intensity interval training. And the winner? The exercise that outperformed everything else wasn't running, wasn't cycling, wasn't anything that makes you sweat. It was sitting still and squeezing. Isometric exercise reduced systolic blood pressure by an average of 8.24 points, nearly double what aerobic exercise achieved. And one of the simplest forms of isometric exercise is something you can do while watching television, while sitting at your kitchen table, while talking on the phone. But here's what concerns me. If you do this wrong, if you make one common mistake that almost everyone makes instinctively, you won't lower your blood pressure. You'll spike it. Dangerously. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to perform this simple exercise correctly, what equipment you actually need, and the one breathing mistake you must avoid. First, I'll explain why this works better than running on a treadmill. Then, I'll give you the exact protocol that researchers use to achieve these results. If this topic hits close to home, if you've been struggling to get your blood pressure under control, despite taking your medications and walking every day, drop a comment below and let me know. Let me tell you about Margaret. Margaret was 73 years old when she came to see me. She'd been walking 2 miles every morning for 15 years. She watched her sodium. She took her lisinopril religiously. And yet, every time she came in, her blood pressure was still hovering around 145/92. She was doing everything right. Everything the guidelines told her to do. Her previous doctor had added a second medication, then a third, and still, her numbers wouldn't budge. The morning it happened, Margaret was walking her usual route through the park near her house. She felt fine, a little tired maybe. She'd been sleeping poorly, which wasn't unusual. The humidity was high that day, and she noticed her heart was beating faster than normal. Halfway through the loop, the world tilted. One moment she was watching a cardinal hop across the path in front of her. The next moment she was on the ground, her hips screaming, her cheek pressed against the warm asphalt. Margaret had fainted. Her blood pressure medication, combined with the heat and dehydration, had dropped her pressure too low too fast. A passing jogger called 911. The ambulance took her to the emergency room. X-rays confirmed what the paramedics suspected: a fractured hip. For Margaret, a woman who prided herself on her independence, the next 3 months were devastating. Surgery, rehabilitation, a walker, then a cane. Months of physical therapy before she could walk her route again. And here's what haunts me about Margaret's story. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She was following every piece of advice she'd ever been given. Walk more. Take your medication. Watch your salt. But the approach itself had a flaw. Multiple blood pressure medications can cause orthostatic hypotension in older adults, meaning your pressure drops suddenly when you stand or exert yourself. Combined with the effort of daily walking in warm weather, Margaret was at risk every single day. Comment yes if you've ever felt dizzy when you stood up too fast. This is something I want our community to be aware of. Now, here's what I wish I could have told Margaret before that fall. There's a form of exercise that lowers blood pressure as effectively or more effectively than walking, that takes a fraction of the time, that doesn't raise your heart rate significantly, and that you can do sitting down in your own living room. It's called isometric exercise. And the version I'm going to teach you today involves nothing more than squeezing your hand. But before I show you exactly how to do it, you need to understand why it works. Because if you understand the mechanism, you'll do it correctly. And doing it correctly is the difference between lowering your blood pressure and raising it. Isometric exercise means tensing your muscles without moving. When you push against a wall, your muscles are working, but your arm isn't moving. When you squeeze a stress ball as hard as you can and hold it, the muscles in your hand and forearm are contracting, but nothing is changing position. This is fundamentally different from what happens when you walk or run. During aerobic exercise, your muscles are constantly contracting and relaxing. Blood flows in and out freely. Your heart rate increases significantly to pump more blood. During isometric exercise, something fascinating happens. When you squeeze hard and hold, your contracting muscles actually compress the blood vessels running through them. Blood flow to those muscles is temporarily reduced. The tissues start running low on oxygen. Metabolites build up. And then you release. What happens next is called reactive hyperemia. It's a rush of blood flooding back into the previously compressed area. Your blood vessels, which had been squeezed shut, suddenly dilate wide open. The mechanical contraction of muscles around the blood vessels increases something called shear stress. This is the friction of blood moving along the inner walls of your arteries. That shear stress stimulates the cells lining your blood vessels to release nitric oxide, a powerful vasodilator. Think of it like this. Imagine a garden hose with a kink in it. Water builds up behind the kink. When you release the kink, water rushes through. And the inner walls of that hose feel the pressure of that rushing water. In your blood vessels, that rushing blood triggers a cascade of signals that improve the flexibility and function of your arteries over time. The 2023 British Journal of Sports Medicine meta-analysis ranked all exercise types by their effectiveness at reducing systolic blood pressure. Isometric exercise had a SUCRA value of 98.3%. SUCRA stands for surface under the cumulative ranking curve. It's a statistical measure showing how likely an intervention is to be the most effective. To put that in perspective, aerobic exercise had a SUCRA value of 40.5%. Dynamic resistance training was at 46.1%. High-intensity interval training was at 39.4%. Isometric exercise wasn't just better, it was dramatically better. A separate meta-analysis focusing specifically on isometric handgrip exercise found average reductions of 6.88 points in systolic blood pressure. Comment, rethinking, if this is making you reconsider your approach to blood pressure control. Here's something remarkable. The reductions from isometric handgrip training often appear within 4 to 8 weeks. One study in medicated hypertensive patients, average age 66, showed systolic blood pressure dropping from 125 to 120 after just 8 weeks of training. These participants were already on blood pressure medication. They weren't replacing their medication. They were optimizing their blood pressure alongside their medical treatment. And this is critical. These strategies are designed to complement your current treatment plan. They are not replacements for prescribed medication. Always discuss any changes with your healthcare provider. Let me tell you about Robert. Robert was 68, a retired engineer who approached everything with precision. He'd been diagnosed with hypertension 5 years earlier and was taking 2 medications. His systolic pressure still ran around 138 most days. When I showed Robert the research on isometric handgrip exercise, he did what any good engineer would do. He analyzed the data. He researched the protocols. He ordered a handgrip dynamometer online. And then he made a mistake. During his first session, Robert squeezed the dynamometer as hard as he could. He was determined to get the best results possible. He held his breath and gripped with everything he had. 20 seconds in, he felt lightheaded. His face flushed. His heart pounded. Robert had accidentally performed what's called a Valsalva maneuver, breathing hard against a closed airway, like bearing down during a bowel movement. Combined with the intense muscular contraction, this caused a dramatic spike in his blood pressure during the exercise. The Valsalva maneuver during isometric exercise can increase blood pressure by 40 points or more in the moment. For someone with uncontrolled hypertension, this could be dangerous. The research literature is clear. Regardless of health status, the Valsalva maneuver should be avoided through encouraging and teaching appropriate breathing techniques. Robert was lucky. He stopped. He researched what went wrong, and he learned the correct way to do it. Now, 3 months later, Robert's systolic blood pressure averages 128. That's a 10-point drop. He still takes his medication, but at his last appointment, his doctor was impressed enough to consider reducing his dose in the future. Robert brought the research to his appointment. He explained what he'd been doing. His doctor reviewed the evidence and agreed it was reasonable to continue. This is how it should work. You learn something new. You share it with your healthcare provider. You make decisions together. Let me show you the exact protocol. The most studied approach uses 4 2-minute isometric contractions, alternating hands. with 1 to 4 minutes of rest between each squeeze. The intensity is set at 30% of your maximum voluntary contraction. Here's what that means in practical terms. First, you need to determine your maximum squeeze. If you have a hand grip dynamometer, squeeze as hard as you can for about 3 seconds. Note the number. 30% of that is your target. If you don't have a dynamometer, you can estimate. Squeeze a tennis ball or rolled-up towel as hard as you possibly can. That's your maximum. Now squeeze at about 1/3 of that effort. It should feel like work, but not extreme effort. You should be able to maintain it comfortably for 2 minutes. The protocol looks like this. Step 1. Squeeze with your right hand at 30% effort for 2 minutes. Step 2. Rest for 1 to 4 minutes. Step 3. Squeeze with your left hand at 30% effort for 2 minutes. Step 4. Rest for 1 to 4 minutes. Step 5. Repeat with your right hand. 2 minutes of squeezing. Step 6. Rest again. Step 7. Finish with your left hand. 2 minutes of squeezing. Total time, 8 to 16 minutes depending on your rest intervals. Frequency, 3 days per week with at least 1 day of rest between sessions. Duration. Research shows benefits appearing as early as 4 weeks, with sustained effects demonstrated at 8 to 12 weeks. But here is the most important part, and I cannot emphasize this enough. Breathe continuously throughout every contraction. Do not hold your breath. Do not bear down. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, steadily and calmly the entire time you're squeezing. If you notice yourself holding your breath, if you feel your face getting hot, or your pressure building behind your eyes, stop immediately. Release the grip. Reset your breathing. Start again. Comment, breathing matters, if you understand why this is so important. Now, who should not do this without first talking to their doctor? If you have severe uncontrolled hypertension, meaning your systolic pressure is regularly above 180, or your diastolic is above 120, you need medical supervision before starting any exercise program, including this one. If you have had a recent stroke, heart attack, or any acute cardiovascular event, do not start this without explicit clearance from your cardiologist. If you have an aneurysm, particularly an abdominal aortic aneurysm, the temporary increases in pressure during the squeeze could be dangerous. If you have severe retinopathy or are at risk for retinal detachment, consult your ophthalmologist first. If you are on multiple blood pressure medications and frequently experience dizziness or lightheadedness, work with your doctor to ensure this is appropriate for you. This video does not claim to cure hypertension. What it does is give you evidence-based strategies that may help optimize your blood pressure alongside your medical treatment. The research shows meaningful reductions of 8 to 10 points systolic over 8 weeks in many people. But responses vary, and not everyone will see the same results. Equipment options. The gold standard in research studies is a hand grip dynamometer. These devices measure exactly how hard you're squeezing, which makes it easy to hit your 30% target. They range from $20 to $50 and are widely available online. But you don't need one. A tennis ball works. A racquetball works. A rolled-up hand towel works. Some studies have even used a commercial spring grip exerciser, which often costs under $10. The key is finding something that lets you squeeze at moderate effort, not maximum effort, for 2 minutes straight. If you're using a device without a gauge, aim for a squeeze that feels like about a 3 or 4 out of 10 in effort. It should require concentration to maintain, but you shouldn't feel exhausted or strained. Let me tell you about Dorothy. Dorothy was 71 and had struggled with blood pressure since menopause. She'd tried walking programs, which aggravated her knee arthritis. She'd tried swimming, which was wonderful until the pool raised its membership fees beyond what she could afford. When Dorothy learned about isometric handgrip exercise, she was skeptical. It seemed too easy, too simple. How could squeezing a ball for 8 minutes 3 times a week do what an hour of walking couldn't? But she tried it anyway. She used a tennis ball her grandson had left behind. She set a timer on her phone. She made sure to breathe steadily throughout. At her next appointment, 6 weeks later, Dorothy's blood pressure reading was 132/84, down from her usual 146/94. She called me afterward, and I could hear the smile in her voice. She wasn't walking less. She still tried to stay active, but for the first time in years, she had numbers she could be proud of. And she could do it sitting in her favorite chair, watching her morning news. Comment, taking action, if you're planning to try this and bring it up with your doctor. Now, I know this was a lot of information. If you want a printable summary of this exact protocol, including the breathing technique, the timing, and the safety precautions, Pure Longevity VIP members get a large font checklist you can literally hand to your doctor at your next appointment. If you're not a member yet, the link is in the description. Here's what I want you to take away from today. The research is remarkably consistent. Isometric exercise, and specifically isometric hand grip exercise, reduces blood pressure as effectively as, or more effectively than aerobic exercise, in less time, with minimal equipment, in a way that even people with mobility limitations can do. The mechanism involves reactive hyperemia, the rush of blood that occurs after you release a sustained contraction, and the release of nitric oxide that improves blood vessel function over time. The protocol is simple. 4 2-minute squeezes at 30% of your maximum effort, alternating hands, 3 days per week, for at least 8 weeks. But breathing is everything. Hold your breath, and you create danger. Breathe continuously, and you create benefit. This doesn't replace your medication. It complements it. Bring this information to your next appointment. Discuss it with your doctor. Make the decision together, because Margaret didn't have this option explained to her. Her approach to blood pressure control, while well-intentioned, ultimately put her at risk. She didn't know there was another way. But now you do. If you found this genuinely valuable, consider using Super Thanks. It highlights your comments so my team can prioritize responding to your specific questions. And if you know someone who's been struggling to control their blood pressure, someone who's tired of being told to just walk more and eat less salt, share this video with them. The link might change their life. Comment below with one of these 3 options. 1. Already doing it, if you've tried isometric hand grip exercise before. 2. Starting tomorrow, if you're ready to begin. 3. Need more info, if you have questions I didn't answer. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell, and I'll see you in the next video.